Hey, thank you all so much for joining another episode of Celeste the Therapist Podcast. My name is Celeste. I'm a therapist from Boston. And if you're new here, thank you so much for giving me a try. I've been podcasting since 2018. Uh, and I've started off podcasting where I was talking to other people. And then in 2024, I had this idea I was going to open a wellness center, and so I didn't have the capacity to interview people. So now I come on and I give you these nuggets and information to help you shift the way you think, because I realize we get stuck in the way that we think about things. And a lot of times we may think it's our circumstances that's stopping us from creating change. But the more that I've worked with people, and I've been working with people for over 20 years, I recognize that the reason why we kind of get stuck is because of our own fixated ways of thinking. We get really stuck in the struggle. And today we're talking about negativity bias. So important right now with everything that's going on, and people not realizing just how much their actions and what they're listening to is stopping them from feeling any different. And I want to be clear that the things that are happening that you're struggling with, the hard feelings are going to be there. But I'm seeing people are getting so consumed by them. So I want to kind of help you understand why that happens, how it happens, and what you can do about it to work on yourself. Before we do that, I just want to share my website. So I have a wellness center. It's called Shifting the Way You Think, because like I said, I recognize that we tend to get stuck in the way that we think. And I have events that are taking place. So I want to share that. So if you are listening, I have my website up, and the website is stwyt.com, and that's stwyt.com. And I created this website because I wanted a place for the Black community to be able to come to see people that look like them, to be able to host events like wellness events, where you can have a space and bring people together, because I think that therapy is great, but I also think or know that there's so many other modalities that are not being utilized. So if you go to stwyt.com, you'll see Meet the Team. So we have 2 clinicians. I'm not taking anyone right now. And then we have the services that we provide. So upcoming events, space rental, and individual therapy. We also have an area where you could donate if you want to donate a class to someone. But under events, so I'm going to click on upcoming events. And as you can see, our next event that we're having February 4th is called Rest and Recharge. This event is by Paula McCree. And it's a great way to work on getting in tune with your body, getting in tune with your breath. And then after that, we have Connections that's taking place, Craft and Chill. And so this is a place, Connections is a series that I'm creating once a month that can have people come together. It's not about talking about mental health. It's not about doing anything that's uncomfortable. It's literally about chilling. This time we're going to be crafting, so wine glass or coasters. Another time we're going to have games. We're going to have movie night. So it's not even about having conversation. I think a lot of times when it comes to our struggles and people talk about mental health and things like that, we don't talk about community and just being together and how that can be so empowering. I've had people that say, I wasn't going to go to this thing, but then I decided to go, and actually I feel good. Like nothing happened. Nobody spoke words to them about, oh, you should do this. It's just that they were able to get out and do something different. So that's why I created the series Connections. So you see the Connections that's taking place February 8th. And then the Connection Reset. So this is a cool event. This event is hosted by a social worker, Julia, and it's for couples. And so if you go to my website, her website is there, the link to purchase. February 15th, she's having an event for couples. So this is going to be something that's exciting. So through interactive activities, guided discussions, you'll learn more practical tools to enhance your relationship. And relationships are hard, especially when individuals are struggling. There's something powerful about having knowledge and information about how to come together, because we can tend to get in our own feelings, get in our own way. So that's going to be a cool event. that's going to be taking place next month. And then we have, let's see what we have next. After that, we have Mindful Yin. Again, this is another monthly series. So Rest and Reset. Mindful Yin is a monthly series that we're doing. And then I'm having Goal Alignment Check-in. That's March 30th. That's online. At the beginning of the year, I did a event where we talked about how to look at the wellness wheel, how to look at our goals. I don't want that idea to be something that only takes place at the beginning of the year. So I'm doing this quarterly. It's a free event. You just come on. If you sign up, I'll send you the Zoom link. And if you can't make it, I'll send you the lesson or what we talked about. So this is great for you to kind of come in, recheck in with your goals. You know, one of the things I know is that we don't always have that person that's on the same page with us, that's in alignment with us, right? And I didn't have somebody that was an entrepreneur or going towards the things I was going towards, but I did find it online. I did find it in groups. I find it on podcasts and books, right? I really just embraced like learning about the thing I said I wanted to do. I like really enhanced my craft. The way I'm able to talk and speak. When I used to speak, I used to feel nervous, but I just felt passion. I was like, I want to do this. I want to help other people. And the more I did it, the less the anxiety in my stomach felt, right? So that goal alignment check-in, that's going to happen uh, in March. And then and we're always adding events. And then the other thing that we have is Healing the Inner Child series. So this is in person. It's happening again April 12th. This is going to happen quarterly, and it's a 3-week series. It's not something you could come to maybe once or twice. It's something where you would have to make a 3-week commitment. So 3 Saturdays back to back. It's a lot of content, a lot of information. And my goal behind creating it is because I didn't want people to kind of rush through the process. So that's something that's taking place. So if you want to learn more about what's happening at the center, just go to stwyt.com. All right, y'all, let's talk about negativity bias. This is a issue or a thing that happens, right? And I'm going to tell you the definition. So if you're watching it on YouTube, it says the tendency to pay more attention to negative information than to positive information. Here, more weight is given to negative experiences versus the neutral experiences that we have, right? So that's something that people don't realize is happening, is that a lot of times when you're hearing negative things, you're finding yourself being more drawn to that information. And you might be like, dang, why does that exist, right? So humans have a negativity bias because it was an adaptive trait that helped our ancestors survive. The bias is the tendency to pay more attention to negative information than positive ones. So let's say, for instance, like we were in the woods, years ago, we didn't have Google, we didn't have the internet, right? All we had was our instincts. And so if we ate something and it made us feel sick, we needed to remember that we got sick. Because if we didn't remember that we got sick, what could happen is that we'll eat it again and then we find ourselves struggling, right? But because of that negativity bias and that ability to remember the hard stuff, it's supposed to prevent us from not doing it. Another example of negativity bias is like, let's say you got several compliments, right? Your boss was like, oh my gosh, you didn't do this one thing right. But then throughout the whole interview or the whole assessment with your boss was talking about all the amazing things you did right. So let's say 90% of the meeting was about positive things that happened, and 10% was about things that he wanted you to clean up on. And what happens with a lot of people, that 10% ends up being the thing that you're focused on, right? So that's something that takes place, and people really don't understand what's going on. Studies show that negative news stories are significantly more likely to be clicked on and shared compared to the positive news, right? So when you think about social media and the stories that go viral, it's periodically I'll see things that are good that can go viral, right? But a lot of times it's the hard stuff because it's evoking a lot of emotion in us, right? So that emotion that is being evoked in us, it tends to be something that can become like addictive, where your system begins to crave it because that's the only thing you're looking at, right? If you're on social media and you're struggling with yourself and where you are in life, and you're on it a lot and you're just seeing all the people that are where you want to be, you'll find yourself always like looking at that and feeling like a certain way. And your mind will start to continue to focus on that because that's your focus. If you're a long time listener, I always use this example. If you have a red Toyota and you drive that Toyota, when you're driving in the streets, you're going to find yourself always seeing a red Toyota. And it's not because everybody went out and got your red Toyota. It's because your mind looks at it every day. So it's the thing that's going to stick out. And I always say, imagine if you thought about what you wanted to do, right? You started working on it, creating action. What happens is your mind starts to focus on, how can I continue to allow Celeste to create this action? How can I continue to allow Celeste to do the thing that she wants to do? That's literally what's happened in my life when I'm working on things, the things that I'm doing, the things that I say I want to do. Because I'm focusing on it, my mind continues to show me the possibilities of what's available to me, right? So there are going to be some effects. So I told you what negativity bias is, right? I want to share with you the effects that negativity bias can have on us, right? Because there's mental effects and there's physical effects. And I feel like if you understand this, it might help you kind of reframe some of the ways you're doing things. So when it comes to the physical effects, right? Impaired immune response. So, chronic stress induced by negative thinking can weaken the immune system, right? This is not just about negativity bias. In general, chronic stress weakens our immune system. And a lot of times we don't realize the reason why we're always sick, the reason why we're always struggling is because we're in constant states of stress. So I want you to remember that cardiovascular concerns, high levels of negativity are linked to increased risk of cardiovascular issues like high blood pressure due to the stress response. Again, and high blood pressure causes stroke, heart attacks. People are dying younger and younger from heart attacks, from heart issues, because our body was never meant to stay in that state. I said this before in the podcast. Humans are the only species that can go into this flight or fight mode with just how we think about things. We don't have to be in immediate stress right now in this moment. But because we don't have any other way of thinking, we find ourselves in constant states of stress, which continues to keep our body working in overtime. If my computer is always on, I never shut it down, I never work on it, it's always kind of in overdrive. A lot of times people computer starts to break down because they didn't shut it down, right? They didn't do any updates. They haven't worked on it. So that's two of the physical things. Another physical response, digestive problems, right? Chronic stress manifests as digestive disturbances like stomach aches, IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome, and changes in appetite. If you find yourself constantly struggling with stomach issues, doctors are giving you medicine and not really knowing what's going on, check in with your mental health. Check in when the stomach stuff starts happening. Time and time again, when I'm working with people and they talk about these stomach issues and the stomach issues stop, they come again, they stop, right? What happens is, because I'm working with them, I'll know what's going on. And I'll say, oh, it sounds like your stomach stuff started around the time X, Y, and Z happened. And they'll be like, dang, you know what? You're right. The more we start working together, they start paying attention. Now they start to make the connection that when their stomach starts turning, something's going on. And so they begin to, that's their sign like something's not right. Our body gives us signs that we're not okay. But because we're not used to listening to our body in that way, we ignore the signs. It gets out of hand. It gets to the point where we need medical intervention, right? So digestive issues is one. Sleep disturbances. So many times people struggle with sleep. And when I'm talking with people, I'm checking in, how'd you sleep? How's your appetite? And have you been moving your body? When it comes to sleep, people will get so used to not sleeping well that they find themselves saying, oh, this is just how it is. No, this is not just how it is. There's something wrong. We were never meant to not have enough sleep. When you sleep, it's how your body like resets, right? Um, and just if you're stressed all day, you call yourself trying to go to sleep. Just because you're trying to go to sleep, that stress, that those thoughts that are going on and on in your head, what's happening is happening in your sleep, right? Your system is having a hard time settling down. So you might fall asleep just a little bit and then like get woken up because your system is so used to being in high levels of stress all day. Once you try to settle down and go to sleep, it's like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? We got to get up, right? Like, why are you sleeping? We still got to solve these problems. We still got to do X, Y, and Z. Your system needs to plan. Your mind needs to understand, what are we doing? If we're not telling our mind what we're doing, if we're just escaping with drugs, substances, alcohol, food, TV, social media, we're finding ourselves just escaping. Our mind is just continue to run, right? So be mindful of that. Muscle and tension pain. How many of you are struggling with back pain, feeling achy, feeling like old, feeling like something's wrong? The reality is that when you are struggling and you're not doing anything about it, it needs a place to go. It sits in our body, it sits in our bones, right? The achiness that you're feeling, right? And then the last thing is headaches. How many of you have a hard time with having headaches and migraines? And if you start to pay attention to when those migraines set off, when the headache sets off, I'm sure you'll recognize this when something stressful is going on. And I don't want you to allow the headaches, the back aches, the stomach stuff to become a norm because, again, we were never meant to live that way. And I understand that maybe you have never been taught a different way of operating. Maybe it's kind of like, oh, yeah, my mom, she struggled with migraines, right? My dad, he always had stomach issues. You just chalk it up to like, oh, it's in our DNA. Yes, but yes, and also the way we live tends to get passed down from generation to generation, right? You see your parents or your caregivers living under a state of stress all the time. You're not taught to live under stress, but based off of being in that environment, that's what happens. So those are some of the physical ailments that happen when you're constantly like consuming and you're not paying attention to the negativity bias that are taking place when you're absorbing content and things like that. What are the mental health effects, right? Mental health effects, increased stress and anxiety. So the constant focus on negative information can trigger the body's response, leading to heightened anxiety levels and physical symptoms like heart rate. Anxiety, anxiety is so dominant now in today's world. And there are so many things that are hard, right? I'm a therapist. As much as I work on not consuming so much negative news, I still hear it, right? I talk to people every day. I'm not in a bubble completely. And it gets really challenging. And the thing about anxiety is anxiety loves when you're dwelling on the past. Anxiety loves when you're worried about the future. You know why? If you could see me right now on YouTube, you're dwelling on the past, which is back here. You're worried about the future. And so in the moment, you're never in the moment. And having peace is being in the moment. But I want to be clear that for some people, being in the moment was something that was very challenging for you, right? And growing up. And so you learned how not to be in the moment, how to always have your system on high alert, got to be ready, stay ready, and be in survival mode. And I was somebody that operated like that all the time. Sometimes my system tries to go in that mode and I bring it right back and I'm like, no, but right now we're safe. We're okay. I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. I don't know if I'm going to be here tomorrow, but I know what's happening today. And so I want you to be mindful that like what you're absorbing, right? We're talking about negativity bias can keep you in a constant state of stress. Depressive symptoms, so dwelling on negative thoughts and experiences, can contribute to pessimistic outlook, making it harder to see the positive aspects of life, which can exacerbate depressive symptoms. And a lot of things that are happening are so depressing. It's sad. It breaks my heart. And I feel those things, right? I don't try to reframe it. I don't try to pretend like it's not happening. It's happening. But I also work on try to recalibrating my mind and look at what else is happening because I can't allow myself to be consumed by it. Some more things that mental health, the impact of negativity bias can impact your mental health. Low self-esteem, right? So this can lead you to focus on the perceived flaws and shortcomings, leading to a negative self-image and low self-esteem. Now, I love social media. I'm able to put my content out there. I'm able to engage with people, look at funny things, learn how to cook, right? There's so many dope things about social media. There's a lot of hard, if you're not mindful and if you're not paying attention to the way you're looking at things, you will find yourself always feeling like you're never enough. Always feel like like how am I not where they are? Why am I only here? Right? You'll forget that, oh, I went through this, I went through that, like I got through this part, and you'll be like, oh, I'm only here. And so be mindful on how you're allowing what you're seeing in others to affect where you are. Everybody's story and how they started and where they started is going to look different. And social media shows us highlighted reels, literally, right? Some people will show the hard stuff, but majority of people are showing the good stuff. And you're finding yourself, if you find yourself comparing yourself to others in that way, remind yourself that you're stressing yourself out and like maybe you need to take a step back from social media. Another way that the impact of negative bias is rumination. So constantly ruminating and thinking on negative things, or like, let's just say you're thinking about where you are. Like you always wanted to go to college and you didn't have a chance to go to college because of the way your life went. And, oh, I didn't go to college, right? It's like, okay, make a decision. Do I want to go to college? And if I do, what do I need to do to get there? Right? College was this is just an example, but college was a big thing years ago. And for some people, it was a setup for like debt, right? You get these big student loans and jobs now, like they're laying people off. And so now you're working just to pay student loans, right? So like think and as when people talk about this college thing, and I'm like, well, what do you want to do? They don't know what they want to do. But then when we dig deeper, the college thing is just this fixated thing that they have equated to success, especially when you live in America. This colonizing way of thinking, this hierarchy way of thinking, they haven't gotten out of that, and so they're holding on to that. But then when I say like, well, if you don't know what you want to do, you don't want to be in debt, then what is it that we need to do, right? Little by little, they start to say, you know what, it's not that I wanted to go to college, it's that my parents wanted me to go to college, or I've equated that to success. Social difficulties. So when it comes to the impact of negativity bias, it can make your social interactions hard to maintain healthy relationships. Because again, if you're always consuming negative news, if you're always thinking in the negative, if you're my friend and I don't call you back, and I'm not calling you back because maybe I'm depressed or maybe I'm overwhelmed and I didn't call you back, what's going to happen with if you think in negativity, if you're thinking in a negative way all the time? Oh, Celeste just don't like me, right? You're gonna start creating stories. I know this is true because I talk to people every day who are creating stories, and they'll say something about a partner or a friend or a family member, and I'll know that that person may be going through something, or there's no evidence. I said, "Oh, really? They don't like you? What? Why do you say that?" Well, because they didn't call back. I said, "Oh, so." You don't know what's going on with them. And last time you spoke to them, they said their mother was struggling with cancer. Like we forget that people have lives and a lot of people are struggling, and we get so consumed by our emotions. We get so consumed by always thinking negative that now that relationship that we're in, we're looking at it, the things that's happening in a negative way. Right? So this negativity bias, or the way that you're over consuming negative news, or the way you're thinking negative all the time, it's affecting you in all areas of your life. And then poor decision making, right? So if you're constantly consumed by negativity, when overly focused on negative outcomes, you may make decisions based on fear and avoid taking risk, hindering opportunities for personal growth. And everything that I've done. So if you're new to the podcast, like I started my private practice in 2015, was an entrepreneur before. I authored 2 books. I opened a wellness center. And these things that I've done, I didn't have nobody that was doing it, that was guiding me. And the amount of fear that came in, because the voice comes in, it's like, oh, you think you could do that? Who do you think you really are? The voice comes up for me. I hear it, I see it, and I'll be like, oh no, I can do it. Like I talk back to the voice. I don't allow it to have dominion in my life. Right? And if I allowed myself to be consumed by negativity or negative noise, what will happen is that that voice comes in and it just reconfirms what I'm already doing with myself on a day-to-day basis. So when you think about your decision making with your life and the things that you're choosing to do, be mindful on if you're the way you're not like pushing forward with the things you say you want to do and why it may be happening. Maybe you need to work on consuming something different. Right? You don't realize how the way who you're talking to, what you're listening to, what you're watching, how much that's affecting the way you see yourself, the way you see your capabilities. How to break the cycle, right? We're going to end with how to break the cycle, because we're not just going to talk about I'm going to educate you on this podcast, right? And so if you're new here, I want you to make sure you have a notebook and you're taking notes. And if you haven't been taking notes, you can rewind this and take some notes. But I'm going to educate you on what's going on. I'm going to talk about how it happens, and I'm always going to end with what you can do about it. You're never going to leave none of my podcasts, none of the videos that I watch, and this like, oh my gosh, like I'm screwed. You're going to be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then you're going to be like, oh, I think I can do that. Right? That's my goal in doing this. So how to break the cycle? Awareness, right? Start noticing when you're focusing on negative thoughts. As I said, the thoughts come. You may like people that follow me or see what I'm doing. You may be like, "Dang, I wish I could do it like that," or "Dang, how does she do it?" How do I do it? I become literally I'm aware of what's going on, and I don't allow it to be the narrative of my story. My trauma, the things that's happened to me, it doesn't rule me. It's not my lens on my present nor my future. So really being mindful on what you're thinking. Try not to allow yourself to constantly escape what you're thinking. The next thing is reframing. So reframe negative thoughts into more balanced perspective. That's important. And then in parentheses, if you're watching me on YouTube, I put when it comes to the hard things that are happening, this is not a space for reframe. So what I mean by that is like, let's say the things that are happening in America, how so there's like this bullying like space, I feel like that's happening. And I'm not asking you to reframe, oh, that's not like it's happening, but it's not really happening. I'm not actually reframe that. Some things that are happening, I need you to acknowledge, like be aware that it's happening, feel what's going on, grieve those moments, right? So like that's not what I mean when I say reframe, because it's important. I think sometimes with like therapy and the way like colonize, like I feel like therapy in America, the way we went to school is very colonizing. I'm very much about decolonizing what mental health looks like, and breaking cycles, right? And I think that the way that, if you're in therapy and you're feeling like, oh, this isn't working, a lot of times I feel like they make it seem like something's wrong with you, like something's wrong with your brain or you're defective. No, something happened to me and I'm in a system that was never designed for me, right? You start to feel defective. You're not defective. And I need you to understand that you're not defective. Something happened the same way. If you cut your finger and you find yourself bleeding, something happened for the blood to come out. And you do, and then you be like, okay, I cut my finger. Let me put a band-aid on it, right? You start to care for that wound. When it comes to the wounds that we experience, because some of us have had to escape, we forget. We feel like it was 20 years ago, and we don't realize how that wound, and we don't realize it's a wound. We don't realize we're being affected by it, and we don't care for it, right? We don't treat it. Gratitude practice. So try keeping a gratitude journal. to shift focus to positive aspects of life. Gratitude's huge, right? Every night me and my husband, we check in with our kids and we ask them 4 questions. We say, how are you feeling? What went well today? What did you do to prepare for tomorrow? And what are you grateful for? And what are you grateful for is so important for me, right? And I say, what are you grateful for today? So I have them focus on some things that may have taken place today so that they are not just moving through life without recognizing, right? What do you need to do to prepare for tomorrow? To think about, okay, like so they can work on being prepared. What went well today? So many times with this negativity bias, we can have a great day at work. Somebody cuts us off. That cutoff takes place for 10 seconds. You're going home pissed off about and talking about what somebody did that took 10 seconds out of your day. You're allowing it to consume you because again, some people don't know any other way. Limit exposure. So setting boundaries with the news and social media, right? That's important. Sometimes you could be so addicted you don't even realize you're addicted. Look at your screen time. When you get on social media, even if you can't find your screen time, look at your watch, look at what time you got on, and then look at what time you got off. Start checking yourself, right? Because we don't own social media. There's a narrative that is constantly being pushed, divisiveness, right? I see it. It's so clear. And we're not thinking critically. There's a lot of headlines they put up for clickbait because it evokes a lot of emotion. People care more about going viral. They care more about clickbait. They care more about making their content and their platform big. And so they don't really care about like how you're being affected by these things. They just want the views. And you don't realize because of that like emotion that's coming up that's evoking all of this energy, you're just being consumed by it. My husband will watch certain like things on YouTube that talks about what's going on, and especially at night, right? And automatically like he can watch it and be fine, and like some shows like kind of make comedy out of it, but it just pisses me off. And I will put my headphones in and listen to music or watch something on my laptop. Like I recognize, like for me personally, I don't want to go to sleep to that. And for me, I do something different, right? I'm mindful in how I'm affected. I could watch a movie or show and there's a scary scene coming up. Not scary, but like somebody's about to get caught. Like I don't like scary movies, but it's like a drama. I will forward that part because my stomach start like I can feel things in real time. That's just how much in tune I am with my body. And so I'll forward it or I close my eyes, right? I give myself what I need at that moment. Give yourself what you need. But how do you give yourself what you need if you're not aware of what's going on? And then the last thing, really important, is mindfulness and meditation. It can help ground you, right? And if you like, I don't know about meditation, I want to say, like, when it comes to mindfulness and meditation, there's no one way to do it. And when you take time to like think about what you're thinking and you're like, oh, but there's so many thoughts. That's good. I want you to know that there's so many thoughts. I want you to know that it's important for you to start engaging in those thoughts because what's happening is those thoughts are starting as a seed and they're growing into full weeds, right? You're letting weeds grow in your mind. And so even when you have this goal or this thought that comes up that's good, where you're like, oh, I think I could do that. You could listen to this podcast and be like, oh, I think I can like make that happen. What's going to happen is because you're not tending to your garden, you're allowing weeds to happen. You'll never allow yourself to blossom and grow the way you're supposed to grow. I really want you to be mindful of this. I'm so passionate about this because, like, my platform and everything I do is about shifting the way you think. My goal is to help empower you because when you know who you are, guess what? Nobody can tell you who you're not. And growing up, one of the things about in my household, my mom's never spoke negative to us. She'll be, oh, that's good. You want to do that? Like, she'll be like, just positive about it. I didn't know that people grew up in spaces until I started working with people. I didn't know that they grew up in spaces where they were talked down to or they was told, like, you really think you could do that? I didn't know that was a thing. And I realized just how much the fact that my mom never like came at us negative or always encouraged us was such a huge blessing to my way of thinking. And even if you didn't have that growing up, I want you to know, like, if you're still breathing, there's room for change. You can recalibrate the way you've been operating and the way you've been taught. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Yeah, it's gonna take some time, but I promise you can do it. So as we're winding down, I want you to be mindful and not allow this to just be a feel good session, right? Again, these sessions that I do here, I really want you to use them as a tool to help yourself grow, right? Take notes, take what you can, leave what doesn't work for you. Understand that change takes time. Understand that change is hard. Change is ugly. It's grieving, right? It feels lonely. And when you know what you know, sometimes when you try to make that change and it feels lonely and it feels hard, what tends to happen is that you'll find yourself not doing the change because nobody told you that this was going to happen. So you might find yourself um like going forward with what you have been doing because what you're trying to do feels so scary. So I hope this was helpful. If anything I ever say resonates for you, understand you have the power to create change, but it's important for you to have faith and believe in yourself. Because when you have faith, when you start believing in yourself, no one could ever take that away from you. So until next time, beautiful people, I will talk to you later.